Hello, everybody. My name is Pigeon, and this is
Pass.
or Daisy Tanner, as you may know her. And welcome to episode 7 of the Inexperienced Teachers podcast. And this is like a little bit of side note because um, recently I was made aware that I was saying unexperienced, and actually our thumbnails say unexperienced, and that's not a word. It is actually inexperienced teachers podcast. So welcome. Uh, Today we have episode 7, and we will be talking about.
How can we integrate board games in the classroom? We will also compare and contrast gamification, game-based learning, and we will talking about our learning outcome creation for a class using a handout that our teacher gave us.
Yep. So, in short, our episode for today is going to be about gamification versus game-based learning, which is different, right? So you cannot see, of course, the handout that we were given, nor the learning objective, nor anything. But here we have the handout, our learning outcome or objective that we made, right? And also a little chart explaining the differences between gamification and game-based learning, which we also had to do during class, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I think we could go over the definitions. Do you mind?
Yeah, definitely. So, gamification is basically applying game elements like points, badges, levels in non game context. And game based learning, on the other hand, um, refers to using actual games as part of the learning experience. For example, quizzes that I think quizzes is no longer quizzes.
Yeah, I
They
don't
change.
remember the
Yeah,
name.
I
It's a weird
neither.
name.
Yeah.
We don't remember. But yes, we can use quizzes. We can also use board games, which we will be
Hmm.
talking about today, right? And an example that I can give is maybe playing Monopoly. Well, maybe not with a class, or maybe it could be in groups, right? Because playing with the whole class wouldn't be effective. And the contents could be buying or ordering, or like following instructions and stuff like that, as you have to like buy properties, follow the instructions in order to play the game correctly. So yeah, the main difference here is that the games are part of the learning experience for game-based learning, the method, right? And on the other hand, gamification is just applying game elements to non-game contexts. For example, one can give tenths, right?
Exactly.
Uh, if they do like an activity or a bonus activity in order to get them, right? But this is like more of an extrinsic motivation,
Exactly.
because the students are not motivated just because they want to learn. They want to learn or complete tasks in order to get something in, how do you say,
Return.
in return. Yeah. So yeah, and talking about motivation, well, as I already said, gamification, like with the game elements in non-game contexts, they are about, I mean, this motivation is extrinsic because they're expecting something that is not just learning. And on the other hand, pass.
Sorry, I got a little bit lost. So, on the other hand, we have the intrinsic motivation that is related to this game-based learning approach.
hmm So intrinsic motivation, it's more about like the satisfaction that the students feel after playing the game, right? Not just because they're gonna get tenths, because in game-based learning that is not like necessary,
Necessary.
right? In
Yes.
in general, in education, it's not necessary. Maybe just to reward them a little bit, like if they do
Yeah.
something outstandingly well, right? Maybe like they deserve a little reward, but not all the
Exactly.
time.
Not all the time. Yes.
Right, because then we would be conditioning them to complete or play games in order to
Yeah.
get a reward.
And basically, with intrinsic motivation provided by these game based learning or games implemented, In this case, basically, students are learning by playing a board game, for example, or developing, for example, a quizzes. So yeah, basically that would be the main difference between them.
Now, what else could we talk about regarding these two methods? We also have like examples. Wait. To like wrap up the definition, right? To make it more clear. I cannot say that expression. Crystal
Crystal
clear.
clear.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So some of the examples that we have here in our chart for gamification, for instance, which we said is about in extrinsic motivation and game elements in non-game contexts. We have leaderboards in quizzes. For example, the most popular one I would say is Kahoot,
Yeah.
and the one that was previously named quizzes, right? They have, I mean, you have the option of not using them, but they have that option that you can show the leaderboard in order to see who's doing the best, right? And then we have earning stars for a completed homework, and like we said, it's the same as tenths, a little like bonus points, right? For them to use later. And on the other hand, for GBL, we have playing a simulation game to learn economics, or like we mentioned before, Monopoly, in order for them to buy stuff, properties, places, get out of jail, and stuff like that. And something else I would like to mention, because previously we mentioned quizzes for the gamification concept, right? But quizzes can also be used with a specific learning purpose, right? For the learning process. But in this case, for gamification, it would be a quiz with a leaderboard, a quiz with points to see who is doing better, like I mentioned before.
So now let's move on to the focus of each one of those for gamification and also game-based learning. So on the one hand, we have gamification. So the main focus is to enhance motivation, as we already mentioned implicitly, and participation as well. So students are willing to participate because they are going to receive something in return, and the behavior as well. So basically, I don't really. What do you think about the behavior?
I
I
don't.
don't really like that word.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
After we had like those classes and we made like the charts, I'm guessing from what I'm getting from you is that we don't like that gamification that much because it's more about conditioning a student to
yeah,
play, and it's like extrinsic
control,
motivation.
like having control over them. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or having, I mean, during class we have this expectancy of certain behaviors, but here we're going like getting into behaviorism,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
we
yeah.
don't like it too much. And on the other hand, GBL, the focus is about learning through doing. So like hands-on activities, like playing
Mhm.
a board game for the sake of playing a board game, because they're not gonna think, okay, I'm going to play this board game so I can learn. They're not gonna
Yeah.
think that, or most of them are not gonna think that. Like 90 or 95%, they're not gonna have that thought
Yeah.
around their minds, right?
And those are like hands-on activities.
Mhm.
So they
It
are
makes it more meaningful,
yes.
and that helps them learn better, like easier, because they're not like seeing structures, but they are applying them, right? And what else do we have? What else do
Well,
we
the
have?
goal we have here, but it's quite related to this with the
The
focus.
focus, yes.
So yeah, well, the teacher's role. That's a very important
Important,
one.
yeah.
Yeah. So for gamification, the teacher's role will be the one as a designer of reward systems and motivators. Again, behaviorism. So we don't really like that word or that in this case like
Approach.
theory or
Yeah.
yes.
And then for GBL, we have that the teacher is a facilitator of the game rather than a presenter, for example. The teacher guides the game. The teacher helps them understand how to play it, for the students to be the center of this activity and for them to understand, learn, and play it, right?
However, I would like to mention that behind the scenes, to say somehow, the teacher will also be designing this at some point or adapting this material for them. I have done that. Like if for some classes, like I applied some games, some board games, and I had to adapt them because um, I don't know, to use the language, the target language, for example, etc.
Yeah. And now, on the other hand, on the contrary of the teacher's role, we have the student's role. So for gamification, the student is just a participant whose goal is to get rewards. For example, 10 stars or get a score, right? And on the other hand, GBL, the students are actively participating to solve the game or get to the end of the game and learn, of course. Okay, so we are finished comparing, contrasting these two concepts, which are different, as you already uh, are conscious or aware of, right? And we're going to move on to answering the questions. So, I mean, it's just one question, but or maybe we could start with the learning
With
objective.
the learning objective,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, like we said before, we were giving a handout with it was basically pages of a book, a course book, and we had to make an objective regarding that, and also game-based learning. We had to make an objective for a game-based learning activity regarding the coursebook. And what we came up with was by the end of the lessons, the students will be able to describe past actions because the contents were about the past tense. And finally, events using the same simple past tense. So that's our learning objective. We don't have much to say about it, right? I don't know if you have something to say about it.
No, not really. It was interesting, like being or creating this learning outcome, like having this background about game-based learning and gamification. So it was interesting, I would say.
So maybe to relate it a little bit more with GBL, so I was thinking that the students could use these contents, which is describing past actions with past tense, sorry, and they could get in groups, and then they could create a story, and I don't know, each of them gives like a sentence to create a story. And there are also these dice that I have seen that each face of the dice or die has like an action
Yeah.
and or an object, an action and object, and I don't know what else because I don't remember. They're not mine. I have used them at university, and so they can use these die, roll them, they get an action and an object, and then they create the story and then they present it at the end to everybody, right? That could be
Well, they
like
can
a
also improvise, but it could be both. Like they can follow up the story by I don't know, but that would depend on the skill that we want them to develop. So we didn't focus on one specific skill. So, anyways, UDL. So we will provide them with different options for them to demonstrate their learning
their
or
knowledge.
their knowledge. Sorry,
Yeah. So that is like
understanding. That's a word I wanted to use.
and so that's our idea of a game-based learning activity. Of course, it wouldn't have points because that is behaviorism. We don't like that too much. I mean, it's not wrong. It's not inherently wrong, but we would prefer otherwise. Like,
Yeah,
right?
and we have to do it carefully as well, and in a very thoughtful manner. So yeah.
Yeah. And finally, the question. Finally. So, how can you integrate board games in the classroom? I have ideas, but I also have an example. Um, in my practicum center, because I'm a pre-service teacher, right? I'm not working yet. 1.5 years left. At my practicum center, they have a course book, which is the Oxford course book. And what I have noticed is that that course book has like at the end of each subunit, I believe, they have a final project, but throughout the units they work toward completing that project. So it's like chunks, 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 and at the end everything together, project. And so I saw that the students were completing these mini like sub projects for each
Mhm.
subunit, and it was all about actually creating a board game, like their own board game in groups, and so they could collaborate, share ideas, communicate, etc. Right? And so yeah, that is like my example, like real life example of what I saw, what I could observe.
Yeah, I also was at that practicum center, and yeah, they had to create another thing, but not a board game. But anyway, that's a very good option.
Yeah, because it was project based. So I mean, sorry, I forgot to mention the two ideas. The first idea was that the students play a game or play different games during class that the teacher can provide, or maybe the school could provide, or there are also like online downloadable printable games, right? Which are more not cost effective, but like cheap to implement, right? And accessible. That is the word. So there's this first idea of them just playing games that the teacher gives them, and then what I said about the project, like the mini project, and then the final project in which they finish making their board game. So very hands-on, amazing. And then they play it. I imagine I wasn't there, but I imagine they played it, because if not, what is the purpose, right? And so yeah. Now, what do you have to say about the students playing the game in class and not creating it?
Well, so the um, the most important thing I would say that is define the learning objective. So the teacher must be very precise when doing this, and the if the teacher likes doing or choosing the game for them to play, it must be chosen and designed appropriately for their level, of course, like maybe having different um, stages or different ways for them to demonstrate their understanding as well. For example, I don't know, by drawing, by acting out, or maybe
Solving
solving
riddles, answering
riddles,
questions,
etc.
explaining, in order to apply their knowledge,
Yes.
right? So another thing that I wanted to say is that regarding the learning objective is like the oh, somebody's calling me. No, no, nobody. Okay. Um, so the learning objective is like the main purpose of the activity. So it's like I believe the most important thing, because you are not going to just take a game and just throw it at them, because they will not know what to do or what's the purpose. They are also it's not explicitly shown that they are interested in what we want them to do by the end of the lesson, but they also need it.
Yes.
It's like in order to guide them,
Yeah.
right?
That's
So
why it must be socialized at the beginning of the lesson as well.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So like we said before, another it's like a bit of help, right? Like a suggestion. Like we said before, there are printable games online that you can print at school and bring to your students.
Yeah, and
And
if you're lucky, those printable games will be or will consider the same vocabulary. But if not, you can also adapt them. Like you can, there are some like ways to, I don't know, when you download those games, you can have a word where a document where you can change the, I don't know, the sentences or the vocabulary used.
yeah, there are a lot of games that you can download online that you can personalize. For
Yes.
example, bingos, word searches, and stuff like that. So yeah, that's it for the like types of games that you can implement in class. And well, the second suggestion is, in order to integrate the board games in a classroom, is that you must, and this is like a must, you cannot skip this, giving clear instructions at the
Yes.
beginning before giving them the games, or maybe you give them the games and they can look at it, but you have to give clear instructions. Otherwise, the purpose of the lesson or the game is out of the window. They're
Mhm.
not gonna understand how to do it. They're gonna be doing anything else but what you meant them to do.
And always try to model. If you can do it, do or try to give an example or like hands-on explanation,
Hmm.
hands-on activity explanation.
Yeah, so that is it for today's video. If you liked it, I mean, no, this is not a video. I mean, it is a video, but it's a
Uh-huh.
podcast.
Yes.
If you liked it, drop a comment, suggestions, anything. Give us a like, share it with your peers, and subscribe.
Yes. Thank you very much for listening to us.
Yeah, and this might be no, I don't think this is our last episode. There will be one last episode on Friday, I think. And yeah, so
Are
see
you sure
you.
about that?
I am. We're going to be talking about a book. This is a spoiler. Spoiler alert.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It's gonna be really good. Like I have high hopes for it, and we're gonna have another host.
Mm.
Okay, so yeah, goodbye. See
Bye.
you. See you. See you. See you.